Hey, Bob Cooney here. I am here with the amazing Dulce Baerga. Love it. And we're going to talk about WebXR and Apple's support or not, or we'll see, of it and its implications for the metaverse. And Dulce and I met at the Apple launch party that I hosted in Malibu. And she was very excited about something in the keynote that mentioned WebXR. And since then, we've had some dialogue online about it. And frankly, look, I don't know enough about WebXR. I was pretty dismissive of it because I believe that when we bring the old paradigm into the new paradigm, I think we hold ourselves back a little bit. But then I did a version of Beat Saber, what was it called, Moonrider, in WebXR on the Quest Pro, and I was like, holy fuck, like this is in a web browser, and it felt legit. And I was like, okay, I need to pay more attention to this. And then I saw your enthusiasm for it, and I just want to do a deep dive, not only for myself, but for other people who might not be tracking this technology as well as you are. And so I really appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate being here, and I appreciate expressing everything WebXR and what's coming down the pipe on the web, which is really interesting. And AI has a lot to do with that, as well as the blockchain and Web3. So it's a lot of different tool sets that are going to empower people and give more agency to the little guy, and not have to be beholden to the big corporations that want to serve it to us. But the thing that really stood out to me at the keynote was the fact that they spent about 3 minutes or so talking about Safari. I'm sorry, my dog is right here. So,
Oh,
um,
I love
yeah,
dogs. We're a
yeah.
dog. We're a dog friendly show.
This is Ivy. Hold on, come here. She's huge. She's a pit bull.
Oh, aw. Oh my God, she's beautiful.
I know, sorry, my Ivy.
She's
Okay,
so
go over here.
shiny.
Yeah, she's a baby still though. She's a puppy. So they spent like 3 minutes talking about Safari.
Mm.
And that was hugely telling to me, the fact that they really wanted to hone in on Safari for developers. They talked about Unity, of course, and they talked about how Unity is a partner, and most AR, VR people, they are already Unity. So that was a huge sigh of relief for a lot of people, because they don't have to remake anything. They don't have to rebuild their stack for Apple's system. And Play Canvas is another one that they announced later, but these engines that are already existing, people are already building on. They don't have to remake anything. It
Yeah.
can just pretty
Okay.
easily
Before
over.
you go any further, a couple of questions. So, they mentioned Safari and they mentioned Unity running native.
Yes.
What is that? What does Unity running native on the device mean for people?
That means that people can build straight to the Vision Pro from Unity. So that's what that means. So there will be a build stack in Unity that will allow developers to directly port their application into Unity, into the Vision Pro.
Okay.
You can do that right now with the Microsoft. There's a Microsoft build stack. There's a Magic Leap build stack. There's an Xreal build stack. There's different build stacks. Some people use OpenXR to help with their builds, but most big hardware companies will have their build stack available in Unity, because they've partnered with Unity and
Now
they
they
have.
didn't announce a partnership with Epic with Unreal, and we know
Right.
that there's a well documented litigation going on between Epic and Apple around App Store fees and stuff like that, and whether that's the reason or not. So, but what's the difference? So the fact that they aren't announcing Unity, Unreal running native, what might the practical differences be to try to help people understand what it means that Unity is running native?
So the practical difference is the ease of porting your application to the headset from the Unity onto the Vision Pro. It'll be a way easier, because it'll be a direct, just push the button build. You set your settings and then you push the button build. With Unreal Engine, I don't think you're probably going to have to build specifically for Unity, on Unity, for the Vision Pro. I don't think it doesn't sound like it'll
For
support it
Unreal, on Unreal for the Vision Pro.
on Unreal, yeah, for Vision Pro. But there are workarounds to that. So if you have an application that's in Unreal, you can still work with OpenXR to help you port your application onto this headset. It's a few more steps that have to be added in and a little bit more knowledge and understanding, but you can get it done. It's just not as easy as it is with Unity. So
Okay.
it's a big deal that they partnered with Unity because it just means that things are just going to flow a lot easier from existing properties onto this headset with no problem. And people who are already building stuff in Unity will have no problem building to this headset.
Yeah, cool.
Uh,
Now, the other thing that came out in either the keynote, I think in the keynote they talked about that for Safari to support WebXR, it was like in the developer tools, and you had to turn it on or something like that. Now, what did you make of that?
Okay, so that's a huge, huge point. And the reason why that is happening, so let me step back a little bit. In April, I attended the WebXR working group meetup in Cupertino on Apple's campus. And the chairman or the chairperson of the working group meetup is Ada Rose Cannon, and she was poached by Apple from, believe, Samsung. I think she was working for Samsung. And we were all nervous and worried because she's our champion. She's the WebXR person, like the person that really exemplifies WebXR, has been on the team forever, has probably been one of the first founding members of the immersive group at the W3C. So to have her taken away to Apple was a very scary prospect to many of us because we thought that WebXR was going to die and move and not be a thing. Um, and then she sent out a message and said, "No, we're hosting it here on Apple's campus, and they're allowing me to continue to chair, even though I can't contribute anymore. I can still be the moderator of the working group and help take notes and things." And there were two Safari engineers on the team that are actively helping support the stack build. And then you have a representation from every other company there. So Google, Microsoft, Niantic, Eighth Wall, Pico, Meta, Unreal, Unity, Samsung, Magic Leap. If I miss people, I'm sorry, but there was quite a bit of
Yeah.
representation across the board of all WebXR or XR companies. Niantic, Samsung, Google, and Microsoft, Apple, of course, Unity, Meta, and Unreal Engine were being the strongest voices in the room. Um, and so the reason why it's under a ticker and the reason why it's got you got to turn a ticker on is because Apple can't control everything about WebXR, and there's still a lot of unknowns. And right now, they are talking about the model tag and how that model tag is going to function and operate moving forward. The model tag is Google's property. Google introduced that as an open source tag viewer for 3D. And they started with GLTF. And GLTF is from, Kronos Group. I forgot about them. They're huge and they're important. They're like one of the main ones. Yes. So Kronos Group, they have their GLTF open standard 3D that everybody's been adopting, but except for Apple. Apple has USDZ.
All right, so let's unpack a little bit of the jargon, because this is for people who aren't as experienced with WebXR. So you've thrown out a couple of acronyms. So what do they stand for and what do they mean?
So GLTF, I don't know the actual acronym for GLTF. I have to look it up, the
It's
actual
okay.
word, but it is a file format for 3D that is based on XML or no JSON. Don't know for sure.
That's all right.
But there, yeah, it's basically there's scripts. You can crack them open and you can read the script of these 3D objects, and it will tell you all the attributes of this 3D object
Gotcha.
inside the script if you open up the script. But then if you put the 3D object or the file into a browser, it will show you as a 3D object, and everything that's associated is embedded inside of it, right?
Okay.
Um, so that is the file format that the Kronos group came up with, that the internet has widely adopted, and it works really well. Most 3D software engines like Maya and Blender and Nomad Sculpt and such. They all export out to GLTF. So it's really easy to make these models now and just throw them up onto a website and engage with them.
Yep.
So that's Kronos Group standard that most people have adopted. Apple decided not to adopt that standard. Apple decided to create their own standard called USDZ, and it's based off the USD standard, which came from Pixar. And USD standard is the Uniform Design Scene or Development Scene or something. I forgot. I'm sorry, I don't know the actual acronyms, but the what the words are. But these formats, they came out of this one came out of Pixar, and of course, is Apple and their relationship with Pixar. That's the one that they chose to use and build off of and create their systems with. So they created a couple of tools called Reality Converter and Reality Composer. And both of those tools are on the mobile phone. So you've got on the iPhone and the iPad, and you can make 3D AR scenes with this and
Yeah.
see them in AR on your phone.
So that's part of the AR kit that they released, I assume. Yeah.
That's part of their AR kit, exactly. So this is when they introduced the USDZ, they also introduced these tools so that you could then build USDZ. You could take your GLTFs and convert them into USDZ so that you can play them on the Apple phone. Now, because most of the market, most of everybody uses Apple devices, including people who build
Yeah, the
with
creatives, it's
the
the creative
creatives.
tool. Yeah.
When WebXR first came out, Apple didn't have much restriction on the way Safari was handling this code. So you could do a lot with it in the very beginning, and it was very exciting. And people were coming up with a lot of demos. This is when Eighth Wall started to become an actual company, and it kind of exploded. And it exploded because they created this app for Spider-Man, and it was really frictionless. It was such a frictionless experience. I could just get onto it with my iPhone, and now I have Spider-Man in my room on this web browser experience, and it was mind-blowing,
Yeah.
and it was beautiful the way it worked. But then as soon as that was like, and the fact that they put things into a ticker and they restrict this because they're trying to figure out how best to put a meter on things. But they know that they have to be open as much as possible. So the fact that they spent 3 minutes talking about Safari and making Safari the centerpiece for this headset for creating these web apps and adopting them on your lock screen, tells me that they understand that a good majority of XR experiences through web apps, through some kind of web action or initiation,
So there
whether
was
that's somebody telling them, giving them a URL, or them seeing a QR code in the street and scanning that QR code, and then it takes them to something on the
Yeah.
web.
And so there was something else you mentioned that Google, and it was a tag that Google has kind of
Model,
standardized. What was that again?
the model tag.
The model tag. So talk
Yeah.
about what is a model tag and what's the implications of that?
So the internet is built on HTML, and HTML, they're container tags. So this is just another version, a portion or a new component to HTML. It's the model tag. So another big player in the tagging for these web pages, A-Frame, and that came out of Mozilla. So with A-Frame and the model tag, and then you throw in powerful scripting language like Babylon JS or 3JS, and then you have a pretty dynamic kind of experience that you can build. A very immersive dynamic experience can be built off of the A-Frame tag, the model tag, and some GLTF scripting. So the model tag is, you place that in your website, and then you put some attributes to it, and you point to the file that you want to bring up, and that's what you do. And it's just a bit of script code that you put in your page. Yeah.
Yeah. And so you think that Apple is going to not force people to move to to turn on the WebXR capability through the developer tools. Do you think that that's going to be at launch of of the Apple Vision headset in early
Yeah.
next
Well,
year?
for this headset, for sure, it's going to be under that ticker, and it's going to stay under that ticker for this headset, and for maybe a few more iterations until they
Mm,
really figure it out. Until, there's a lot of kumbaya happening at these immersive group meetups, and we have everybody kind of playing nice in the
yeah.
sandbox together. And I think that's another uh, thing that people are realizing on a larger level, that we can't be so siloed anymore as companies. We have to kind of work together, because if we're trying to build a metaverse, we have to build a metaverse that's literally handshaking and working with each other.
Well,
And
yeah. If it's not the metaverse if it doesn't do that, right?
it doesn't do that. Exactly.
And that's ultimately where I kind of want to take the conversation. So, but I have more questions. So, Chrome supports WebXR, right?
Yes.
And Chrome is by far the dominant browser, and Chrome runs on all Apple devices. Um, do you see Chrome being available on the Apple Vision Pro? And that because then
I
people will
I
just
do
use
see it
that.
becoming available eventually, but the problem with Chrome on iOS is that it's forced through iOS. It has to do it through very restrictive configurations for browser. Like
Mm,
a standard browser configuration for Apple iOS that all apps have to follow, including browser apps.
okay,
So Chrome is still limited on iOS.
got it.
I
So
I I only use my Chrome on my iOS to access my Chrome sync for across devices, and that's about it. But
yeah,
if I'm doing any kind of development stuff, I specifically for iOS, it's on Safari,
on
because
Safari.
that's
So one of the things I was kind of hoping was that because one of the challenges that I think people have with Apple, there's two camps. There's the pro Apple camp, and there's the anti Apple camp, and there doesn't seem to be a lot of people like sitting on the fence. And I think one of the challenges that the Apple anti-Apple camp has is this restrictive App Store environment. And we've already mentioned that Epic is in a lawsuit with Apple around access and fees and stuff like that, and how they charge. And there's a lot of concern, I think, that if Apple forces everybody to go through the App Store, that they're putting a tax on creatives to get their applications in the hand of users, where WebXR would obviously open that up, and then they can't control access because all of this stuff is going to be available on a browser. Um, and there
well,
are huge financial implications of that as well, right, for the whole ecosystem.
right. So it's just a matter of pipelines and figuring out the proper pipelines for these onboarding users into these experiences. And the way that I'm seeing WebXR being developed and being thought about for these companies is exactly that, an onboarding mechanism to larger, more deeper, richer experiences that they then have to download the application for. So you can
Mm,
create these smaller, more truncated experiences that have a call to action that then take you into the app store that then you have to download. So and then at the same breath, it's not limiting other types of devices to Apple's pipeline. So if Apple is keeping themselves open for WebXR, let's say I go to an experience that's on Google, and optimally this experience works best on the Pixel or whatever headset that they're going to create with Qualcomm and Samsung, because they're gonna that was announced at AWE that they're actually going to make a headset. Um, and that experience is tailored to that headset. Apple isn't going to try to force their experience through their meter system, but they're not going to limit their users from having that experience either. So they're going to open up to WebXR to allow these other experiences to happen and take place. But if you are creating specific experiences for this Vision Pro headset, the deeper, richer version will definitely be in the app from the App Store
yeah.
native app downloaded. Yeah.
And is that just a function of time and bandwidth for now? Like, because Like, why would that? Why, if bandwidth and speed and latency continues to improve at the rate it's improving, and Wi-Fi 6E, is rolling out in a lot of consumer devices with, it's really low latency, really high bandwidth. Is that going to change the need to have these richer experiences in apps if WebXR is adopted as a standard?
No, I don't think so, because the way that a lot of these devices are working right now, they work best when you run locally on the CPU, on the actual device. And um the these phones are now, well, I know specifically on Apple phones, they're now mesh relaying to each other. So they're talking to each other. So when we're all standing in a room together, unbeknownst to us, our phones are actually communicating with each other,
Hmm.
and letting Apple know, and each phone know who's in proximity of each other, and how much bandwidth they've got, how much space they may have on their phone. They're communicating with each other,
Wow,
and
that's
that's
scary.
on purpose. Well, it's on purpose because when you do have these really, really rich, high fidelity, um, thousands of people at once having this experience together, you're going to have some sort of foundation to support that. And the cloud's not going to support that.
Yeah,
You need to have the local devices being able to talk to each other and mesh and support that and
yeah,
deliver that.
cool. Now, one
That,
of the things I saw in one of the developer videos from WWDC was this thing where there can be an object in a browser and you look at it and it can then trigger an immersive experience. Was I hallucinating when I saw that? And does that become the hyperlink to go from experience to experience to experience that starts to be the kind of the connective tissue that we call the metaverse?
yes. Yes. It's gonna become like magic, like literal magic. It's and like, yeah, you're gonna gaze at something and a portal's gonna open up and you're gonna walk through it, and you're now in a different platform completely. It's gonna have those kinds of elements, or you're gonna be able to open up a cabinet, with a swing of your hand, something will pop up and then you'll pull things out from a completely other space and share it with somebody in this space. And it could be your real space. It's all mixed reality when that's why they're using spatialized computing. The thing that annoyed me the most about the whole keynote was the fact that he called it an augmented reality headset, and it's not augmented
Well,
reality.
he only used that word once, right? In all fairness, and I think he was building a bridge from AR Kit to
Okay.
Vision Pro. That's kind of
Okay.
how I took that. But why did
Okay.
that bother you so much? What is it
Because
in your opinion?
it's not an augmented reality headset. It is a spatialized computing device, and it is mixed reality. It is not augmented reality. And I was going back and forth about whether it's pass through, and it is 100% pass through.
Yeah,
There's no clear seeing through at all. It's
absolutely
all
pass through.
digital displays. Yeah, it's all, and that's a little disheartening to me as well, because if I've always felt like if I'm going to be spending a lot of time in this headset and it's going to be mixed reality, I want it to be a true augmented reality experience where things are overlaying on my space and I'm seeing directly through the crystal clear lens, and I can see people in my space around me, and I'm not
Yeah.
getting a feedback loop of the real world.
Look, unfortunately, physics exists, and we
Yeah.
haven't figured out how to make waveguide optics good enough
Yeah.
to be able to give the field of view that's required for it to feel immersive and the brightness and everything. So, and power. So power, brightness, field of view. Pick two. And unfortunately, we need all three to create something that's good enough for adoption. And we'll see. Unless we come up with another, see-through display technology, it's going to be a while before waveguide becomes something that I think people are willing to adopt.
And I know that that's Meta's vision. Like, they want to make those Ray-Bans that. The
Yep.
Ray-Ban is eventually going to be that. And I know Apple that's probably their ultimate vision as well.
Yeah.
I mean, they just acquired Mirror, which is a low plastic. It's a
It's really a reflective. It's almost like a holographic display, right? I mean, it
yeah,
reflects the monitor off of a lens, and so you get a nice wide field of view. And I'm
right,
surprised we haven't seen more of that, to be honest with
right.
you, because
And it makes sense, and the quality is good, but it's not expensive to
yeah,
make. So like
yeah,
it makes sense for Apple to have acquired a company like that, because if they're going to make quite a few of these headsets for everybody in the world, that's eventually going to be true augmented reality,
yeah,
that technology would have is great for them to acquire. So, and I understand that they probably had their hand forced because they have to produce something. People have been talking about them putting a headset on the market since 2020, so it's
yeah.
now 24.
I've never seen Apple feel like I have a hard time believing that they felt like their hand was forced. Like I think we all project our own circumstances onto other experiences and try to imagine what it's like. But I don't know that any of us can imagine what it's like to be a $2 trillion company with $250 billion in the bank and a 40% gross margin. So I think suggesting that they felt their hand was forced is our own shit we're projecting onto
Mm,
them. I think they wanted to get the developer community going, and they know that it takes 3 generations or 4 generations for something to hit mass adoption when you're talking about a new technology. And the best way to do that is to get these things in the hands of developers and people like you who are going to create amazing experiences that develop new use cases and must have things that everybody just rushes out to buy when the price drops. And so if you look into the future, that's kind of my job, is to look into the future, right? And I look 4 or 5 years down the road, which is going to happen like that. Because it's already been what, 7 years since the or eight. How long has it been? 8 or 9 years already since the Oculus Kickstarter.
yes.
It was 2014. It was 9 years ago. It feels like it was yesterday. So 5 years is going to go in a blink of an eye, and in 5 years we're going to have 10,000 or 100,000 apps from or a million apps from thousands of developers
Right.
and cheaper hardware. Like,
And we're not even talking about AI in the
yeah,
next year
yeah. I don't
at
want to.
all.
I don't
We're
want to
just
talk about
talking
that.
about XR. Well, I've been spending a lot of time developing AI applications and doing AI things. And I just saw something that was totally mind blowing that I shared on my Twitter, which is a developer took Meta's Segment Anything. Have you heard about that?
Mm-mm.
So it's an AI open source kit that you can use on your apps where you use the LiDAR SLAM technology on the phone to see things, and then it literally cuts things out and segments it, and then you can colorize things. So it can segment people and objects in your room and whatever you want to segment out, and then label it, or you can change it however. So this developer, he used Segment Anything, and it was on a live video. He made an app on a live video through the phone where he segmented himself out, and then he dropped a control net stable diffusion video
I've
transfer.
seen that video. I think, and he just keeps snapping his fingers and changing the scene and the avatar.
I don't know if he's snapping. It's not him snapping his fingers, but he's just walking, and it's he's walking, and he becomes a
Uh,
Templar knight or a
yeah,
knight
yeah.
of
I've
some.
seen the video. It's
Yeah,
fantastic.
yeah, and it's all, and that's augmented reality. So that for pass through, I think that is amazing. That is so amazing to do video treatments like that. It really taps into the idea of using mixed reality as a tool to like change environments and change scenes and to
Well,
skin things the way you want it to skin.
and so you had this. Was it called an object tag that you talked about earlier?
Yeah, it was the model
The
tag.
model tag. So imagine there's a model tag printed on a T-shirt, and you're walking down the street, and anybody that looks at you through augmented reality glasses, you become a Templar Knight because of the model tag on your T-shirt. Like the ability for people to express their creativity through
Yeah.
augmented reality is
Well,
going to be
all you
amazing.
need a QR code. You just
Yeah,
need a QR code. Yeah, that's all you need, because the QR
yeah.
code would then link to the browser, then open up
And then open
that
up that environment.
experience.
Yeah,
Yeah.
crazy stuff. So look, I think and so I want to kind of summarize the WebXR thing, because I think what you're saying is it might be a couple of years before Safari opens it up and allows all users to have access to it while they
Well,
work
all
out the
users
standards
have
behind the
access
scenes.
to it. They just will have to go into the settings and turn a ticker on, and not all users are going to go in and do that. Yeah,
Yeah.
but and I think the main reason why that is because there's a lot of privacy concerns, because you're dealing with the camera, you're dealing with your microphone, you're dealing with the
Mm,
position of the phone, where it is in real space, right? So those are
yep.
all privacy concerns that you have to opt into before you even have the experience, and that's how it works now, which added a whole bunch of friction. So remember when I said that there was this frictionless experience a long time ago when WebXR first came out, when Apple wasn't aware of it and Safari was a little bit more open, it was beautiful. Like you could just easily get to this stuff. But then once Apple got aware of it, it started putting restrictions, put things behind tickers. Now you have to opt in and you have to say, oh, yeah, you can use this, you can use that, you can use this. And it's like a whole laundry list of things that you have to opt into now, which
Mm,
turned a lot of people off to WebXR.
yeah. But
And
I want to, but
because
I want to show
the majority
both
of
sides of
people use
that.
Safari. Yeah, because the majority of people use Safari. But now the fact that Apple has said Safari is going to be at the center, and we are working with WebXR, and we are partnering with we're integrating GLTF, and we're integrating Babylon JS, and we're working with Play Canvas. This is all stuff that they announced that are all really honed into WebXR. It shows us that they understand the power of WebXR, where it's going, the need for it, the fact that they are pretty much in control of how it's moving because they are. And so they, the ball's in their court. So they're going to roll it out little by little, the way to their ability. It's just a matter of the other companies and Apple being able to work nice together. And from the way I saw at this working group meetup, they're working great together.
Yeah.
They're all believing the same vision, and they're all seeing the same thing, and they're all trying to work together. They're all trying to give options to people. They understand that it's not just one flavor, that it's going to be multiple flavors, and they all have to figure out how to be as interoperable and connected as possible.
Yeah,
Yeah.
cool. All right. And you'd mentioned privacy, and I just want to touch on that because the whole app tracking transparency thing that they rolled out and its impact on some of the social networks and the ad platforms. How much of their slow rolling of this, WebXR in Safari, do you think has to do with? And I'm going to ask your opinion because I don't think any of us can know the answer to this. How much of that has to do with privacy, and how much of that has to do with the economics of driving people through the app store?
I think it's a toss up on both. I would say economics is way more is outweighs the privacy, but privacy is an issue, and control also. There's if you're going to be using the Safari browser, Apple wants to have some level of control over how this experience is being displayed in their browser. So
Yeah, I
if
think
it's
I think
not looking great or wonderful, Apple doesn't want it displayed on Safari. Yeah.
yeah, those
Yeah.
of us that opt into the Apple ecosystem do it because we want stuff to work more reliably and seamlessly across devices than with some of the more open ecosystems, and we make trade-offs because of that. I don't actually care about being able to sideload applications. Just not my.
Right.
I don't care. I don't care about that shit. I just want shit to work when I turn it on, and so I think that, and so for their customers who are going to be the early adopters of this device, it's going to be mission critical that the experience is seamless. So that totally makes sense. Yeah,
Yeah.
awesome. Um, Give me a prediction. 5 years from now, um, how many of us are spending how much time every day in the early stages of the metaverse through a reality device?
I think that our community, us technologists in Silicon Valley, we're going to adopt it immediately, as soon as possible. I think we're all tired of this, of
Yeah.
being like this. We don't like that anymore. We want to be heads up. We want to look. I think we've got fatigue over being on the computer, sitting on the computer all day long. We've gotten a taste of what it's like to be nomadic and to work from home and to do what we want when we want. And it just makes sense to just throw this thing on and I can go for a walk and I
Yeah.
can do my work. I'm
Yeah.
looking at things and and pinching, looking and pinching. It's so beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah,
Like
yeah. It,
it,
it creates what they've done is, I'd mentioned this morning on the Gatherverse reality show with Chris Lafayette, who was kind enough to introduce us
yes.
actually. So thank you, Christopher. Love you. But Spark invented the mouse, and Apple adopted it in the Lisa and then the Mac. But it's not. It's easier. It's intuitive, but it's not natural.
Yeah.
And even right now, I find myself, I should be looking at the camera for the audience, but instead I'm looking at you because I want to see your visual cues. And so the cognitive load of switching between camera and you, camera and screen, it's just not natural. And it is tiring, and it creates a cognitive load that they call Zoom fatigue. And this idea, what Apple brought unveiled to us, is this natural computing interface where human we use human communication tools. We use eye gaze, we use voice, and we use hand gestures. This is how we communicate with each other in the natural world. And the ability to bring that into the computing world is going to create this merging of humans and computers. And that's a whole different discussion if that's good or bad and how that plays out. But it certainly is going to make computing more natural and communication between humans via computers more natural. And I think that's a better place for all of us, as long as we put up some reasonable guardrails and elevate our consciousness so we understand, what's happening when we're in these virtual worlds.
I mean, and the phone won't go away. The phone will have its utility. I know that, like for instance, I like to go raving and I like to go to the nightclubs and yeah, and I wouldn't want to wear that headset all night long at the rave, right? So I would take my phone with me, the
Yeah.
watch and the phone, and that's
Well, my
perfectly
guess
fine.
is, my guess is if voice gets as good as it has to be for this natural computing interface to happen, we won't need the phone. We'll be able to use the watch, and then
Just the watch.
and so I think the phone. I actually believe the phone is going to become a smaller and smaller part of our lives, and again, as the wearables get better, more powerful battery life, 10 years in the future,
Yeah.
I'm struggling to see. I'm struggling to see people with access and means using phones.
Yes. No, they won't
um,
be.
I do believe we'll continue to segment the market, and the phone will remain the computer for people who don't have the money to spend
But
$1,000 or
here's
$2,000 on a pair of
here's
glasses.
here's something to think about though. Some people are not going to want to wear the glasses. And I know quite a few people who just will refuse to put those things on their face,
Yeah,
including people with means.
yeah,
So there's going to be options on the mobile device that will give you the immersion that 2D screens don't give us, and those will be holographic displays like Leia and Looking Glass. That will be integrated deeper into these mobile devices, and you'll just have a toggle switch, and you'll just have these like holographic things popping out on top of the mobile device screen. So eventually, the entire society will be looking at it like this. The
yeah.
hologram will be popping up over it, and we won't be like this or like this anymore. We'll just be looking like that. So, it's just going to be interesting to see how these technologies integrate deeper into these devices.
And how people like you create experiences that continue to drive us to want to interact with the technology, because
Yeah.
the technology is just a canvas,
Right.
and the art comes from the community building experiences that are meaningful for us all. And so I want to thank you and the
Thank
whole
you.
creator community for what you do.
Yeah, it's exciting. I want to thank Apple for like shooting some energy into our community and making us feel optimistic again and feel
Yeah,
like we're on track, that we were never wrong with where we were heading.
yeah, it
We
did
felt
feel
like
like
there.
2022. In early 2023, we kind of hit a bit of a doldrum, and adoption slowed down, and usage wasn't going up, and there was we needed a little bit of lifeblood pumped into the market, and Apple certainly has
Well, we
been
got
busy.
conflated with the Web3 and NFT world as well. And XR got conflated with the metaverse because, XR is not the metaverse. XR is tools to create metaversal experiences, but we create other experiences as well. And we have other kinds of tool sets that have nothing to do with the internet or the metaverse or being connected in that way. So, it's the conflation of these technologies has been a problem. But the biggest problem is the fact that people want to separate them so much so that it does cause that conflation. When in actuality, they should be integrated deeply with each other. The blockchain should have been something that the XR community jumped on years ago, honestly, and
Yeah.
not a coin. The ledger aspect of blockchain.
Yeah, especially when you look at digital identities and the ability for deepfakes around voice and avatars, and you have these codec avatars that are going to become more and more realistic, and so yeah, I think with the blockchain, the ledger is a natural way to give us control and ownership and authentication of our identities, and that's going to be critical in the next 5 or 10 years as these technologies develop.
Right. Right. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So we should definitely be thinking about integrating them and using them as tools and not fear them and not think that they're separate from us. And because eventually they'll integrate so tightly that we'll be like, there was a time that all of this was separate. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
Dulce, I can't thank you enough for kind of shedding some light on WebXR and what it means to the ecosystem and what it's going to mean to users of these devices, and how it's going to broaden accessibility to and interoperability between devices and between applications and between creative experiences. Yeah, I look forward to you keeping us posted. How do people
Thank you.
follow you if they're watching
Oh,
this?
I'm Dulce303 everywhere. So at Dulce303 on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn,
You're on
uh,
all the things.
all the things at Dulce303. Yeah.
Okay, beautiful.
TikTok,
And we'll make sure there's a
GitHub.
link down below.
Okay. Thank you.
Cool. Thanks, Dulce.
Thank you.
We'll be back another time with another conversation with another amazing person. I don't know who it's going to be. You'll just have to stay tuned. This is Bob Cooney for the Being Virtual Show, and we'll talk to you next time.